Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Kazina, aka Kozibear, and I'd like to thank you for joining me this evening for another installment of Season 5 of Kozibear's Cooking. A shout out to Samson, who is able to catch this episode live on YouTube. Really appreciate you tuning in. We're going to have a lot of fun today. This is a limited run 6-episode show that you can watch live on both twitch.tv/CozibearLive and youtube.com/@CozibearLive, which is where Samson is currently tuning in live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time between July 3rd and August 7th. You measure up those dates, this is the penultimate episode of Season 5. There will be a Season 6 in due time, but until then, we're going to have our final episode on August 7th, and then there will be a little bit of a break. Will I announce the debut date of Season 6 at the end of Season 5? You have to tune in to find out. If you miss watching this episode or any of our episodes live, don't you worry. You'll be able to view full-length VODs of my past episodes on both platforms, as well as clips and highlight reels of the show's best moments exclusively on YouTube. I've been a little bit slow on getting the clip and highlight reel from last week's Pudding Shomer stream on YouTube because I had to last week finish up an assignment for Respawning Fire. I was busy at work on a brand new OBS setup for a new game show that we recorded just a few days ago. That will be live on the Respawning Fire Patreon very soon. It's one of the most proud things I've done for that group. But enough about that. Know that the clips and highlight reels of the Pudding Shimmer thing will be up soon. I have a great episode in store for you, so let's get this ball right and rolling. Tonight, gotta get a burp out there. Tonight, we are going to be making various potato chip crusted pork chops. Now, this particular recipe is a recipe that I already made on my own time, maybe about a year ago, and it comes courtesy of Wrestling's Renee Paquette's cookbook, Messy in the Kitchen. She put out a cookbook, might have been like a year ago, 2 years ago, and she actually appeared on, I believe it was the Kind of Funny podcast. I was going to say the Game Over Greggy show, but that was its previous name before it became the Kind of Funny podcast. Appeared on there to promote the cookbook and talk a little bit about her career. Let me read from the opening paragraph of her all-dressed chip chops recipe, because in the original recipe, it is basically just pork chops crusted with all-dressed chips, but we're going to be doing a few other chip varieties on today's stream. It's a wacko idea, but it works. It's the perfectly Canadian patriotic dish. Canada has a lot to offer. See, great bands, comedians, hockey players, the birthplace of basketball, and freaking awesome snacks, specifically chips. So, while a majority of the world thinks of Canadian food as poutine, hopefully you've made my poutine recipe from these snacks and such chapter. I have not actually yet, but maybe that will be a future stream. That's actually a good idea for Season 6. Such as poutine and ketchup chips, y'all have been sleeping on all-dressed chips, and they're way more readily available in the US now. Anyway, here's how you make this masterpiece, which I think could totally pass on a Canadian Thanksgiving sample. And then she goes on to list the ingredients and the steps for the recipe. I have condensed it into my own format, and I have also, along with that, incorporated instructions on how to make a mustard dipping sauce. The idea is, if you tune into the end of Season 5 of Kozibear's Cooking, you might remember that on that particular stream, I made a mustard sauce that I could kind of spread on my Montreal-style pizza whistles. I'm going to be making that same mustard sauce because I want something to basically drench the pork chops in after they come out of the oven to see if they pair well with that and also help into their inherent dryness. So, you're probably wondering, what kinds of chips are we going to be crusting our pork chops with today? Well, first off, as the control, we are going to be dressing them in all-dressed Ruffles. This is the chip recommended in Renee Paquette's cookbook. Here's what they have to say on the back. Canada's very own. You'll enjoy this bag of Ruffles all-dressed chips if... ... 1. You enjoy unique Canadian food. It was invented here, after all. 2. you're seeking something both sweet and salty and savory, all in one bag. And 3, you love eating chips that will make your taste buds feel like they are going to explode, which I think is an accurate representation of what these things have to offer. Let's go ahead, you know what? While we're here, let's go ahead, let's give these things a good old taste test just to know what we're dealing with. Yeah, I mean, they say sweet and salty and savory all in one bag, and I think that's a pretty good representation of these things. I think that all dressed ruffles can't really be beat when it comes to the Canadian chip game, but I'm gonna roll these bad boys up and put them away for a little while. Before I forget, when I made my all-dressed pork chops last time using all-dressed ruffles, I actually took a couple of pictures of them on my Instagram. In the upper left corner, you can see one of the pictures that I took. This is what the finished product looks like. I mean, it's not exactly the most appealing thing you've ever seen, but taste-wise, it came out really, really good. I was very pleased with how they came out. And we'll go ahead and we'll shove that away. So, all-dressed ruffles are the first chips we're going to be crusting our pork chops with. Second chips we're going to be crusting our pork chops with. It's a Canadian classic. It's already been mentioned in the recipe that we read earlier. These are ketchup Lays. Ketchup chips. It's one of those weird things where, like, you would think that ketchup chips would be like a more ubiquitous thing that the entire world would love. And it's always kind of weird to travel to the United States and be like, no, this is something that Americans don't really eat all that much. The back of its bag doesn't really have a whole lot of information. It says tangy or relevé, which is how you say tangy in French. Sweet or sucré. Tasty or succulent. And yeah, not a whole lot to say there. I'll go ahead and I'll try out a couple. Back in the day, I used to go to this parish that offered a huge table of desserts and snacks after Mass. And I remember I would just chow down on so many Lay's ketchup chips. I ate the shit out of these things. Now, as my taste buds have evolved, I don't love these as much. I think that they're just a little bit too sweet for my taste. But they're still good. They're still solid. I would definitely recommend anyone that has not tried them before to give them a shot. Samson L says, classic Canadian flavor. I mean, they are definitely classically Canadian. I can't disagree with that. Okay. I'm going to put that here. Now, for the third chip that we're going to be crusting our our pork chops with, I have something very special and very unique. Something you probably wouldn't be able to predict. I'll just show them off. These are kurkure masala munch. My friends from Reef's Finding Fire are probably very familiar with these because I brought these to Boston, to PAX East. They were a big part of the Canadian Candy Corner. So these are advertised as containing flavors from India. I mean, it's a very India kind of coded snack chip, but they are a distinctly Canadian snack that you can only get in Canada, as far as I can tell. Never been able to find these in any of my trips to the States. Let me read from the back a little bit. An explosion of spicy chapata. I know I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, and I apologize. Taste in your mouth with every crunchy bite. Your perfect tedha snack for moments when straight and simple is not good enough. Bite into kurkure snacks to turn on the tedhapan. Again, I apologize. Inside you and let the excitement begin. Here's the thing. I bought these ones because they were very cheap and discounted at my local supermarket, not really expecting much for them. These things are freaking delicious. These are like if you took hot Cheetos and you turned it, basically, if hot Cheetos was your brother, kurkure masala munch would be like the sexier Indian rival that's better at him than everything that he does. I like hot Cheetos, but these things I think actually give them a run for their money. I can like plain up demolish a bag of these on very short notice. So I'm gonna try my best to just have a couple of these. These things are incredible. They are spicy, but they have just a delightfully masala flavor to them that really can't be quantified until you've properly had them. These are delicious, and I'm excited to see how they turn out when we crust some pork chops with them. All right, with that, oh, hold on. Our potato chips are falling over. Thankfully, none spill on the floor. Here, I'll just put it like that so it doesn't accidentally fall over again. All right, with that taken care of, hold on. The kukure masala munch is kind of spicy, so I gotta have some water. There we go. Yeah. With that taken care of, let's go ahead and let's dive right into the steps for today's stream. Step 1, we are going to preheat our oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we're going to toss a healthy amount of our 3 types of chips into 3 Ziploc bags and then grind them down. So we're going to go ahead, we're just going to BRB, and we are going to heat up our oven to 425 degrees. BRB. Like the Flash himself, we are already back. Let's go ahead and let's gather up our chips. Well, actually, we'll want to bring in the top-down camera for this one. We're going to gather up our chips and put them in some bags. We're probably not going to need to use all of these. So what we're going to be doing, I didn't really mention this earlier, but I figure it would be good to bring this up now. In the original recipe, Renee Paquette asks us to make 4 bone-in pork chops using a single bag of all-dressed ruffles. But what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be making 1 giant-sized pork chop each of each type of chip. So we're probably not going to need to use the entirety of the ruffles. Actually, I just touched the meat a little bit. I don't think I've really washed my hands all that much. So you know what? Let's bring in the sync camera and just give my hands a very quick lather. I saw Jackie for a moment. Jackie, which is our household cat, she likes to sometimes hang out in this room, specifically in the basement, and it's always very annoying because we'll be like, where the hell is Jackie? And inevitably somebody will close the door to this room and she'll be stuck in here and nobody will know about it. All right. That's taken care of. Let's put the sync camera out of the way and let's mash up some chips. Here we go. I'm gonna start with our all-dressed ruffles. The thing is I don't want to use too much of either chip, because at the end of the day, like any chips, like chip fragments that are left over in these bags, we won't be able to use for anything because they'll be partially covered in raw eggs because of the dredging process. And so we won't really be able to, best to kind of just use as many chips as we're going to need. Okay, I'm gonna keep the potato chip here rather than put it down at my trolley below, because you never know, maybe later on we might want to have a few chips to ourselves while we wait, while we do things. Let's see here. I have a rolling pin, but I'm wondering, I want to see how much I can do with just my hands. It's the ASMR section of the stream. Samson L says, this camera setup is amazing. Thank you. It took a lot of work to arrive at this particular camera setup. A lot of trial and error. There's still a lot of things that I want to improve. I definitely want to find a better camera to use for the sync camera, for example. But yeah, I would agree myself. And you can bet you that come season 6 of Kozibear's Cooking, I'm only going to have more ideas of how to improve it. Okay. Okay, I think that's good for the all-dressed chips. We'll put that over there. Next up, let's go ahead and let's grind up some kurkure masala lunch. There's a little bit at the bottom. I'll keep it over here. If I need to put more in the bag, I can always add more as I go. In fact, you know what? We should probably zoom in a little bit. Might as well. So we're trying to remove as little air from the bag. And here we go. These are definitely a little bit more difficult to crunch up compared to the all-dressed ruffles. All right, I think we're really going to need the rolling pin on this one. We really want to grind these down. Yeah, it's almost like a piece even. Okay, I think that's about as good as we're going to get it. So let's go ahead and we'll... Oh, there's a lot of air in here. Let me just let a little bit of the air out. There we go. We'll schlep this over here with the other bag. I brought another extra bag of kurkure masala munch, but we don't really need it. So I'm going to just schlep this in this cabinet over here. That's my secret snack drawer for snacks that I want to hide from everyone else. And last but not least, let's grind up some Lay's ketchup chips. I think that might be enough. Or maybe... There we go. I think that's going to be good. All right. Gonna crunch this bad boy up. Here we go. It's good to have another, go back to a type of chip that's much easier to grind up like this. We'll use the rolling pin a little bit. And there we go. I think that's pretty good. And they have such a lovely magenta color to them. It's not quite red. It's definitely more of a magenta. Okay, I don't think we're going to need our rolling pin anymore, so I'm going to slip that into our trolley. Let's go ahead and let's move on to step 2. Dr. Hot Dog says, what kind of chips are we working with here? Real quick, I'll do a quick roll call once more. We are going to be pressing our pork chops today with all dressed ruffles. This is a very distinctly Canadian style of chip. The back of it says that it's the best kind of chip to enjoy if you're looking for something that is sweet and salty and savory all in one bag. And indeed, they do match that. We are also using Lay's ketchup chips. Something I used to enjoy a whole lot when I was younger that I don't enjoy as much anymore, but still pretty good. And the surprise wild card of the stream, we are using Kurkure Masala Munch, which is basically if you made like an Indian themed version of Hot Cheetos that I think might actually be better than Hot Cheetos. These things are really good. If you ever see them in the wild, try them out. Dr. Hot Dogs in the chat says, ketchup chips ain't bad, better than they have any right to be. They're definitely better than they have any right to be. I just, as I've grown older, I think I've acquired less of a taste for overtly sweet chips. But that's just what we're dealing with. So we just finished grinding up our various types of chips, which means that we are ready to move on to step 2. We are going to set up our dredging station. We're going to combine flour, salt, and pepper into one shallow bowl. That will be exactly 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of pepper. And then we're going to whisk together 3 eggs in another bowl. Forgot to put in here eggs. In my little recipe thingy on my phone, I have it set up so that I have check marks for each particular ingredient we're using, so that as I prepare each ingredient, I can check off, oh yeah, we've used up that ingredient. Let's start with our eggs first, actually, because we already have our eggs set up in our bowl. I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna crack these bad boys in. That's 1. Ooh, one's extra goopy. All right, that's enough though, enough goop. That is 2. Another real goober. Wow. And that is 3. There we go. Look at those perfect specimens. Now we're gonna grab ourselves a fork, une fourchette, and we're going to scramble these bad boys up like we're making scrambled eggs. Make it so that it's all nice and cohesive. There's still little parts of it that don't feel fully integrated. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm just gonna wipe down this fork real quick, and I'll put him in the bowl. There we go. All right. Let's set up our second bowl. Where is it? There we go. Gonna grab one of our measuring cups. And we still have the same thing of flour left over from the stream where we made pudding shomer, but there's not a lot of it left. This is also the same bag of flour we used for the pizza stream as well. So we're probably not going to reach a full cup, or maybe we will. I don't know. But I have another extra backup bag of flour just over to the side in case we need it. Let's see. We might be able to get a little bit more in there. Let me just see. Where are we at? It's 3/4 of the cup. Yeah, that's it for this bag of flour, but we have a backup. Dr. Hot Dog says there's history in this bag, is what you're saying. There is. I'm actually pretty impressed. I try not to be like super wasteful when I make these streams. I try to reuse as many ingredients as we already have on hand in our pantry. And I'm happy that we were able to get as much out of that particular bag of flour. Okay. Is this about a cup? I think that's about a cup. And there we go. We're going to schlep that in there. I don't think we're going to need any more flour, so I'll go ahead and I'll put our flour in our trolley. And there we go. A little bit of flour actually spilled on our desk, so let me just clean that up real quick. And there we go. There we go. What next? There we go. We need to add some salt. And we got our measuring spoons over here. That's about good. It's a little bit of a heaping teaspoon, but I think it's going to work just fine. We will need our salt later on, though, so we'll keep it up here. And for our pepper, we have one of those little grindy things of pepper that it'd be good if we had another cup on hand. In fact, you know what? I actually have an idea. I bet I can grind it into this measuring cup that we use for our flour, and then we can measure it out there. So we're going to do that. What I'm gonna do, I'll measure out like a half a teaspoon first, and then we can measure out another half of a teaspoon afterwards. There we go. That's our half a teaspoon of ground pepper. We'll grind up some more. Dr. Hot Dogs makes a good point. I like to grind with the cap on and then just dump it in there. I always forget about that. Give me a moment. And there we go. We got our second half of a teaspoon. Laser Bolton in the chat says, are you ever worried about running out of ingredients and then when you go to the store to get more, your arch nemesis takes the opportunity to kidnap your wife, so you'll be forced to do their bidding? Unfortunately, that's a hypothetical scenario that can't happen because I do not have a wife, at least at the moment. Or maybe I do and I'm just lying about it. No, that sort of thing never happens. But I can understand being concerned about that. It is definitely a very precarious situation to consider. But don't you worry, I'm always on guard. The thing about Canada, though, is Canada's a pretty safe place. You don't really have a whole lot of evildoers running around doing crazy things like that. So it's not something that, even if I did have a wife, I would be overtly worried about. I do probably will have to be careful, though. There's that one tweet that was going around about this new device called Friend. It's like a weird necklace thing that you wear. I might have to be worried about people trying to steal that. That could be a situation that I'll have to contend with in the future. Okay, our flour mixture is set up along with egg mixture. So let's move on to the next step. Let's see here. Step 3, we are going to pat dry our 3 pork chops with a bit of paper towel, and then we're going to cover them in a pinch of salt and pepper. Dr. Hot Dog says that thing, they raised over $2 million for it, and then they spent $1.8 million on the domain alone. Right, because it was called something like friend.com or my.friend. Yeah, definitely doesn't seem suspicious at all. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Bring in our 3 pork chops. Their best buy date is today, so we got to use these guys sooner rather than later. We'll probably want to put them on this bowl right over here. Okay. We'll go ahead, we'll just break into this thing. We're probably gonna have to give our hands a good lather after this. More paper towels. And just gonna pat this dry to the best of our ability. Not trying to do the most elaborate job ever. We're just trying to make it so that it's relatively dry so the dredging process goes without a hitch. And there we go. That's 1. Trying to be very particular with what I touch during this process because I don't want to cross-contaminate and get the juices from the pork chops everywhere. We go. I think 2 is ready as well. And let's grab a little bit more and do number 3. Come on. Come on. There we go. And there we go. Gonna go ahead, gonna schlep that in there. And you know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and give my hands a quick little wash. I'm gonna open the door to the laundry room without properly touching the handle. And there we go. And there we go. Okay. That taken care of, it is time for step 4. We are going to toss each, hold on a sec. We got to get that out of the way. There we go. Step 4. Toss each pork chop into the flour mixture, dredge them in the egg mixture, and then coat them with potato chips. All right, so let's go ahead and let's bring, I guess we might as well do this in a row like this. And then we'll have each thing of chips ready to go. That's going to be our all-dressed ruffles first. Then we're going to be coating them with, let's see here. We'll go with this one for the all-dressed ruffles. So, probably should have picked this up with my left hand so I could put that in the egg afterwards anyways. Let's bring in our zoomed in top-down camera. I gotta say, these bowls are like the perfect size for the slabs of meat that we're working with. Just gonna make sure that the sides are properly coated because the sides are the parts that don't really, we can't easily access. And there we go. Now with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it in. Oh, I just realized. No, never mind. Never mind. We'll get to what I just alluded to when we get to it. We're going to put this into the egg wash. We're going to, with our other hand, just make sure it's nice and properly lathered in egg, like such. And now we're gonna, I guess I can probably just use my flour hand and this will be fine. We're gonna hold the bag open with our flour hand. We're going to schlep our eggy pork chop right in there. There we go. Now the only thing is I'm realizing right now our pan that's covered in egg, it'd be easier if it wasn't covered in egg. So I'm just gonna go ahead and we're gonna wipe it down real quick with a little bit of paper towel. I'm being a little bit wasteful right now. It'd be better if I didn't have to do that after everything, but because we only have 3 of these things, it's probably fine. I'm just gonna push these out of the way temporarily. I'm gonna close the bag. And we're gonna go ahead and shake this bad boy off. All and about. Properly cover him with all the chips. Here he's all nice and crusted on over there. And there we go. And we'll just temporarily just leave him here while we deal with our next thing of chips. Let's go ahead. We'll bring our dredging stations back into view. Let's see. What do we want for the ketchup chips? Let's go with this one, actually. This time around, we'll use different hands. So this one will be for the flour. Do our best to coat them properly. Again, going on the side as well, the contour of the pork chop, so we can get a proper amount of flour in there as well. All right, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to schlep that in our egg, and we're going to do the same thing with the egg. Get it all eggied up. Oh, we're spilling a little bit of egg on this side, so we'll have to clean that up afterwards. And there we go. I think that's properly egged up. Once again, we'll open this thing up. Yeah, we're gonna need to wipe down our egged up hands a little bit. Samson L in the chat says, oh yeah, heat crusty. Oh yeah, that thing is nice and crusty. Nice and crusty. I showed this earlier on in the stream, but in the upper left corner, you can see an image of, this is what the all dress crusted pork chop looked like the first time I made it. This is something that I made off stream like about a year ago. It came out really great then. Of course, I didn't make the other 2 chip varieties with it at the time. But yeah, it came out extra super duper crusty. All right, and without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and we're going to schlep this bad boy in here. And there we go. And I'll just use half a sheet of paper towel to just wipe the egg off there. This would be the kind of operation that would be really convenient to do with 2 people. Like have one person be in charge of the chip side of things and the other person be in charge of the dredging side of things. We're gonna move these out of the way, zoom out a little bit. And oh shit, there's a little bit of egg here that spilled. We'll just clean that up before I forget. And we're going to seal this thing shut and crust it up. I almost wonder, I wonder if I actually use enough ketchup chips in here. Oh no, there's a little hole. Some of them are escaping. This isn't good. I'll have to clean up on the floor a little bit, do a little bit of a sweep afterwards. Make sure there are no egg-crusted chips hanging around the cozy basement floor. And there we go. I think that's pretty good. We're going to go ahead. We're going to put that over there. And third time's a charm. We're going to bring these boys back in. Oh, a little chip got stuck in the eggs. Going to go ahead. We're going to schlep that out of there. What do we want to use this spoon for? I don't think we want to use it for anything. I don't know where to put it. We'll just put it here in the corner. Hold on. There we go. Had a good sneeze inside me. We're gonna zoom back in, and we're going to deal with our last of the pork chops. Properly covered in flour. There we go. Just cover the other side again a little bit. And there we go. My other hand got covered in a little bit of egg, so it's sticking a little bit. I'm going to put this spoon over here on the plate. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to schlep this in the egg mixture. Oh no, we spilled a little bit. Oh wow, we spilled a lot over on the side. I'll have to be more careful next time. And there we go. We'll just give a nice little egg bath. Probably could have just used 3 eggs, to be totally honest. We probably didn't even need all 4. All right. Once again, oh, you know what we can probably use? Probably just use some of these paper towels a little bit to wipe up our hands. We will, of course, have to give our hands a nice washing after this, but anyways. 2+1 in the chat says, hey, Cozy, was Cozy your nickname growing up? No. Kozibear was a nickname that was given to me in high school. A bunch of people were like, hey, Kozibear. I don't know how it came about exactly, but it just kind of stuck, and I, like bears as an animal. And then from there, it kind of just became, well, if people are going to call me Kozibear, the shortened, abridged version of that is Cozy. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it came about. It's a nickname that other people gave me that then was abridged into Cozy that I don't really mind all that much. After that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to schlep our pork chop into our Masala Munch Ziploc bag. If you're tuning in recently, this is a kind of hotter Indian themed hot Cheetos chip that I love, and I'm very interested to see how it comes out when we crust this pork chop with it. And there we go. Schlep that in there. Wipe down our fingies. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get as much air out of that bag as we can. Ziploc the bag shut. If it will Ziploc shut, why is it not closing? There we go. And there we go. We're going to crust this guy up. Just making sure it's properly seasoned, so to speak. I think we're good. I think, yeah. I don't know that the masala munch stuck to the pork chop as well as the other two, but I think it did good enough. Okay. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna grab our phone. Step 5, we're gonna place our pork chops on our cooling rack, and then we're gonna place said cooling rack on a baking sheet, and then, oops, I had a little burp there. And then we are going to bake our pork chops for over about 25-ish minutes. In the original recipe from Renee Paquette's cookbook, it said that we want to cook them for 25 minutes, but that we will want to pay attention when we reach about 20 minutes. So I think what we'll do is we'll set our timer for 25 minutes, but 20 minutes we might sneak a peek depending on where we're at. So we're gonna go ahead, let's grab our, whoops. We're gonna grab our cooling rack. Actually, you know what? Let me just do a little bit of cleanup over here. We don't need any of our excess flour anymore, so I'm gonna schlep this in the garbage. Our egg mixture. Yeah, we don't need this anymore either, so we're gonna... but I feel kind of bad putting it in that garbage over there, because this garbage here doesn't get cleaned out as much as some of the other garbages, so you know what? We'll just put this in the sink. I think this will be the better solution. And there we go. Taken care of. And with these two bowls liberated, we're going to go ahead and we're going to stack them on top of each other and put them in the trolley. Sight out of mind. Now, with a little bit more space on our table, we're going to bring our cooling rack in and move these around a little. We're going to put our pork chops on each respective third of the cooling rack. We're going to start off with our all-dressed pork chop. Very careful. Actually, you know what? Chips are probably going to be falling down a lot here, and I don't want to dirty up the table too much. Let's actually take our baking tray and put it under the cooling rack first. The reason why we're putting them on a cooling rack instead of directly on the baking tray is because basically, per the instructions in the original recipe, we want there to be enough space underneath the pork chops so that they can be cooked a little bit more evenly, so that they can all be exposed evenly to the hot air that is around them. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna schlep this bad boy on here. And we'll just take a few chips. Just spread them on top a little bit. Not too much though. And we'll go ahead and we'll schlep our spent bag in the trolley. Next up, we'll put the ketchup chips in here next. I'm gonna grab this bad boy. I'm going to put them in the middle, like such. I think we put the right amount of ketchup chips in here. There's not a lot left in the bag. And we're going to put the bag in a trolley. And finally, the kurkure masala munch. Look at these colors. I know I already commented on him. Look at how good and colorful these look. These are some real beauties right here. Let's go ahead and let's put our kurkure masala munch on at the very end. I'm going to move these around a little bit and just so they have more space. And there we go. We'll just put a little bit more here. Or I feel like I could use a little bit more. There we go. That's good. What beautiful, beautiful specimen. Matto Battle says, forgot I had the volume way up on this time. RIP my ears, but at least I learned that you have background music. Hell yeah, that is actually something. I am actually curious about that. Do any of you guys in the chat enjoy the background music? Do you want me to turn up the background music a little bit? The background music is only present in my live streams. I exclude the background music and go with some different tracks for my highlight reels and clips that I clip out from these streams. I like having some music in the background that people can kind of listen to, but I sometimes worry it might be a little bit on the quiet side. You can let me know and I can always turn it up a little bit if you like the background music. Let's see here. Yeah, our chips are on our baking tray. You know what I'm gonna do? Oops. I probably should not have put that spoon on that plate. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna wash my hands first. And then I'm going to schlep this bad boy in the oven. Danfin128 says, the music seems a bit soft in the stream without turning on FFZ audio compressor. Not about it says, it's a bit quiet, but it don't matter to me either way. Okay. I'll take that in mind for the future. I think I might need to bump it up a little bit. The thing is I don't want it to be too loud because I don't want it to overpower my own voice or any of the various sounds that you can hear during these streams. I never want it to diminish what it is that you're actually coming here for to listen and watch. And so I think I erred on the side of caution there, but maybe I can bump it up a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit more to make it just a little bit more audible. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to bring that camera out of here. And yeah, without further ado, we're gonna go ahead. We're going to schlep these things in the oven and cook them for 25 minutes. BRB. Is back. I want to just address a couple things in the chat. Danfin128 saying you're on the side of caution. Is an ERR, and pretty loud now, possibly a bit too loud. So the way that the music works is when we're on the stream is about to start scene or the don't close that browser, I'll be right back scene. On those two scenes, I set the music to go a little bit louder because I'm not in the stream, I'm not talking, there's nothing going on, and so I set the music a little bit louder because it can afford to be a little bit louder. And then when we switch back to this scene, the music volume lowers. And I think the issue is, I'm fine with the music volume being at the volume it is in the BRB scene. I think it just needs to be a little bit louder in this scene. So yeah, that's the situation. All right. So first things first, I'm just going to take a moment to clean up a little bit on the table in front of me, because we're going to need to use our portable burner next, and I don't want any dirt or detritus getting in the way of it. I'm going to go ahead, we're going to schlep this into my hand, and I'm going to schlep this into the little garbage thing. Oh, I got a little bit of egg on this plate that I don't like. I'm going to use this plate later on when I eat my pork, so might as well clean that up. Okay, and with that taken care of, we're going to read our next step. Oh, I forgot to set a timer. It's probably been about a good minute since we've been up there, and a little bit more that it took us to actually go upstairs and put the thing in the oven. So I'm going to set a timer for 23 minutes. That's good. All right. Next up is step 6. Buckle in, because this is a long-ass step. We're going to combine 1.5 to 2/3 of a cup of mayo, 1/4 of a cup of Dijon mustard, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/2 teaspoon of dried parsley, 1/2 teaspoon of dried dill, 1 to 2 teaspoons of honey, depending on how sweet we want it, and salt and pepper to taste in a small pot. Mildly heat the pot while whisking to combine. So this is the mustard sauce that we discussed earlier. This is the same mustard sauce that we made at the end of Kozibear's Cooking Season 4 when we made the Montreal-style pizza whistles. On that particular stream, we were not concerned with making a warm mustard sauce, but this time around, we want our mustard sauce to be a little bit on the warm side when we eat them with our pork chops. And so we're just gonna, again, mildly heat them with our portable burner. So let's go ahead and let's bring our portable burner back into the scene. And we're gonna go ahead, we're going to plug this bad boy in here like such. We're gonna go ahead, we won't turn it on right away, or maybe we can probably turn it on and just keep it at like a very low temperature to start off. All right, let's go ahead and let's start measuring out some of our ingredients. First up, our mayonnaise. So our mayonnaise we've actually been keeping in our little lunchbox down below. I'll bring out the lemon juice and Dijon mustard while we're at it, because we're going to need them as well. For the mayonnaise, the original recipe says that we're going to want to use 1/2 to 2/3 of a cup, depending on what the texture is that we're going for of this particular mustard sauce. I'm going to start with, we'll start with 1/2, and then maybe we'll work up a little bit. Mustard is another one of those foods, mayonnaise. I mean, both mustard and mayonnaise are foods that are a little bit hard to measure out like this because of how gelatinous they are, especially the mayonnaise. Whenever I think of mayonnaise, I think of Patty Mayonnaise, by the way, who, I don't know if you remember it, but she was a character on Doug, the animated show, which is a show that I watched a lot of because I had the VHS of the movie, Doug's first movie, but I didn't actually watch the TV show itself a lot. Welcome back, Samson L. I don't know if you remember Doug, the TV show. I used to watch a lot of the movie. The movie was weird, by the way, because as far as I can remember, the Doug TV show didn't really have like a lot of like weird supernatural elements in it, but then the movie had straight up just like a monster. Like the whole plot of that movie is they find a weird monster living in a swamp. Also, if I remember correctly, it was called Doug's First Movie, which is like the most presumptuous title of a movie of all time. Samson L says, this is a nice vibe to do my work over, and Doug, I remember. Yeah, it's, but yeah, getting back to the movie, it was called Doug's First Movie, which feels super presumptuous on the basis that, like, basically they were calling their shot and saying, oh, this is going to be our first of the Doug movies. But that ended up being, as far as I can remember, the only Doug movie. Here's the thing. You talk about that being a movie trend in the 2000s. The Pokemon movie also did that. It was Pokemon the first movie here in North America. And that particular... Is this hot right now? Not really. In that case, in the case of the first Pokemon movie, that felt appropriate because Pokemon was such a gigantic phenomenon that it was kind of guaranteed, oh yeah, of course there's going to be a second movie. In fact, the second movie, Pokemon the movie 2000, might have already been out in Japan at the time. And so they were like, well, we already have one in the bullet. I might as well, you know, call things as they are. All right. Samson L says, the blank movie trend was such a thing in the 2000s vibe. The Recess movie, oh, I remember that one too. That was another, not a VHS I owned, but a VHS rental. That was also another movie too, where like the Recess TV show was not really like a show that delved into like science fiction or like supernatural stuff. And then in the movie, there's like a laser that they're using to move the moon so that they can permanently cover the Earth in ice and end school forever. Or no, maybe it is they want to make school permanent, so they don't want summer vacation is the plot of that one. He also says the SpongeBob's movie, the Simpsons movie. Yeah, I remember those too. Matt Obato says, that's what makes homemade Raising Cane sauce very hard to get just right every time, IMO, because of how hard it is to measure out the mayo. Samson L, they ended summer so they can stay in school. Yeah, I remember that. And again, I remember, even as somebody that didn't watch a lot of Schools Out because they didn't have the Disney Channel, even not being super familiar with most episodes of the show itself, I was like, this feels way more sci-fi, way more unrealistic than the tone of the show itself. Okay, we got our mayonnaise in here. I think that's probably going to be enough for us. Let's go ahead and let's measure out our 1/4 of a cup of Dijon next. I'll just wipe down the spoon a little bit. I can't wait. Someday somebody will rediscover all these weird movies that went way more supernatural for their theatrical run, and they're going to do a big ol' video essay on it, and I am going to love it. You know what? I'm going to rest these spatula on the top of the mayo cover. All right. At least for the Dijon is a little bit more watery. It'll be a little bit easier to measure out. Let's see, we need a little bit more. Jimmy Neutron started with a movie and it was great. Yeah, Jimmy Neutron, at least there, the Jimmy Neutron movie felt like appropriate for, I mean, the tone of that show. I mean, the show's all about this guy that's like a super genius, like super intelligent boy genius. It's probably the most redundant sentence I've said all stream. And so it made sense if the movie's about them fighting those egg aliens. And the coolest part of that movie is where they convert the theme park into a bunch of spaceships and then they go to the aliens' home planet. They were probably, I want to say that the soundtrack to that movie had Kids in America, and I'm pretty sure they played it during that part. Speaking of other 2000s movie, Digimon the movie also had Kids in America during that movie as well. All right. Let's go ahead. Yeah, this is definitely a 1/4 of a cup. We're going to get our Dijon mustard in here. By the way, I want to just shout this out a little bit earlier. Matto, you mentioned Raising Cane's. Love Raising Cane's, and it's one of those fast food chains that exists like quite prevalently on like the west coast of the United States. Does not exist at all in Canada, and does not exist in any of these states that are like adjacent to where I live in Canada. So it's a very rare treat, but I have loved it every time that I've gone there. It's so hard to get this mustard sauce out of the thing. All right, I think that's a good enough job on our part. Just use the spoon to get as much as we can off this spatula. Okay. Danfin says, the biggest thing that I remember about it was the plot wouldn't have happened if Jimmy I didn't show the picture of his parents, the aliens, right? And that's how the aliens learned about it. Matt About It says Dragon Ball had an entire series that went way more supernatural than the tone of the original. And that's true. And then Dr. Hot Dog says a couple just opened in the Milwaukee area yesterday. That's cool. Matt About It, Danfin says, Matt About It, what do you mean? Dragon Ball was fully supernatural from the start. Fortune Teller Baba Saga, anyone? I mean, Dragon Ball definitely was an escalation where the original Dragon Ball series was definitely like relatively tame compared to where things went in Dragon Ball Z. But I mean, yeah, there's definitely an escalation there. We're going to add 1/2 a teaspoon of onion powder. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit more, actually. We don't need the onion powder anymore. We need these other things, so we're going to start putting them in the trolley. Next up, we need our 1/4 of a teaspoon of paprika. Danfin128 says, if anything, Dragon Ball Z was more science fiction for the most part. I gotta say, we're really lucky that we live in a universe in which Dragon Ball Z exists. We could very easily have lived in a universe where Akira Toriyama, bless his soul, didn't make such a beautiful, wonderfully weird creation. And I'm glad we're not in that alternate universe. Next up, we're actually going to need to add in our lemon juice. We're going to need to add in 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. And there we go. I might almost finish this even. I like lemon juice a lot, but you know what? Maybe not now. Very sour. Let's see here. Next up, 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. Let me just, I can feel the burner beginning to heat up a little bit. So let's stir this thing up just a little bit. Okay. This measuring cup we can put into our trolley. Let's see here. This measuring cup we will use for olive oil. Danfin120 in the chat says, mostly everything before Boo was more science fiction and fantasy. The fantasy elements of the Dragon Ball themselves were still present, but it felt like the fantasy elements were more present in OG Dragon Ball. I wonder what the more supernaturally Kozibear movie would be like. I'll think about it. Let's see here. And we've got our 1/4 of a cup of olive oil added to the pot. That's about good. I don't think we'll need to use some measuring cups anymore. Next up, 1/2 a teaspoon of dried parsley. We have very little parsley left in our parsley container, so we'll probably just finish off what's left here. Oh shit. I don't want to use the parsley that fell on the table because there's been a lot of raw eggs that have fallen here, so we'll just let that in the garbage. It's okay though. Mato Bato says, I mean, since we're talking about aliens coming out of nowhere, Dragon Ball Z fits the bill, yeah? I'm pretty sure in the original Dragon Ball series there was actually a moment where Goku went in some sort of scanner, and basically the scanner like indicated like what kind of species he is, and it said alien. It didn't say Saiyan, but it did. There were like teases in the original show that he was explicitly not just a weird kid, but an actual alien, if I remember correctly. It's been a while though. I actually watched a lot between Dragon Ball, the original show, and Dragon Ball Z. I've actually watched more of the original Dragon Ball than Z, but it's been a while that I've watched it. And let's see here. We have to add, we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to taste first. It might have been an addition for, it might have been an addition for the anime and not in the original manga, because it might have been a thing where like the anime aired later on enough that they could include things like that were hinting at things that like were already occurring later on in the manga, is my thought. But I'm not an expert on the matter, so I don't really know. I like how this whole stream has just become us talking about Dragon Ball while I make this mustard sauce. This is perfect. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add a little bit of honey. We're gonna add ourselves. Recipe says we want to use 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending on how sweet we want it. We're gonna start with just 1 tablespoon, and we'll see how much further we want to go from there. And there we go. Now the measuring spoon is covered in all sorts of crap, so I'm just going to put it over there. How are we doing on time? Apparently there's 6 minutes left on the timer, so still got some time to mix this bad boy up. Let me go ahead. I'm just going to put a cover on the honey. We'll also schlep our mayonnaise into our trolley. Danfin128 says, I could and have give a full-ass info dump on the best ways to watch the shows in the various dubs. Speedy dub is best. Massive dub, sarcasm. Dragon Ball is definitely one of those shows where, like, at some point I do want to commit to actually watching it all the way through. There's enough going on right now that I feel like I just couldn't really commit to find the time to doing so, but maybe in the future. Right now, I mean, I'm pretty dead set on completing season 5 of Kozibear's cooking. We have one more episode after this one to go. And I also have to complete some stuff for Respawning Fire as well. How hot is this? Okay, it's pretty decently warm. Okay. Just gonna try another little taste test. I like that. I wonder, it's a pretty good, pretty savory sauce. I wonder if it would almost maybe benefit from a little bit more honey. Maybe I might add a little bit more honey. Battle says, so speedy. They didn't have time for second takes. Danton says, honestly, I wouldn't know, Matto, but basically it's a bootleg dub made by the Malaysian equivalent of Blockbuster. Ooh. That would be a fascinating exercise, moving away from the Dragon Ball of it all to learn about what, like, video rental services people around the world had, where so many, like, Americans and Canadians had things like Blockbuster or Videotron. There we go. There's a little bit of honey left on the tablespoon. I'm gonna just give it a good old mouthfeel, because we're not gonna need to use the tablespoon anymore. There we go. We're gonna mix this bad boy up. Give ourselves another quick taste test. Okay, I think that's good. I think we got it to a good place. All right. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna schlep that into the trolley. We're going to turn off the heat. Let's see here. 3 minutes left on the timer. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this out of the way. You know what we're going to do is we're going to the salt and pepper into the trolley as well. I brought out the portable hood range in case this is going to start steaming, but we didn't even really need it. I'll put this over here to the side. Thankfully, we won't have to clean it today. Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead, schlep up some dried herbs, and then push this thing over here. There we go. So we can leave a nice bit of space for us to put the pork chops when we take them out of the oven. Oh, I was thirsty there. Okay, let's see. You know, I can probably go ahead and I can put the olive oil into our trolley as well, because we don't need that either. Let's see here. These hot plates we don't need either. We will need these oven mitts when we take the thing out of the oven. Actually, no, we will need the hot plates, because we will need to put the pork chops on here. I'll put this on the pot. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Let's see here. 1 minute and 42 seconds, 40 seconds left on the timer and counting. The original recipe said that we wanted to check up on it at around the 20-minute mark. So you know what? I'm going to jump the gun on this one. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take out our pork chops out of the oven preemptively. Matabato has a question about ketchup chips. I will get to that right when I come back. I am back, and let me tell you, I am glad that I took these things out of the oven when I did, because as you can see with the all-dressed Ruffles and ketchup chip ones, beginning to get very, ever so very slightly burnt. Not that much, but enough that I think I'm glad that I took them out when I did. As usual, I'm going to take a quick second to take some pictures of these bad boys, just for posterity, so we can preserve the moment, share some cool ass pictures of people on Instagram later on and other social medias. Whoops. Thought that thing was a little bit hot. And there we go. So, to answer your question, Matabato says, I hear that ketchup chips are popular in Canada. Is that true? And if so, can you send some through the screen for me? Because ours are sparse. And ours are sparse and not very good, LOL. I will do my best to try to send them through the screen. I don't exactly know how to do that yet, but I figured out a lot of interesting technical stuff on these streams. I'm sure I can probably figure that out at some point. To answer your first question, yes, they are very popular in Canada. I mean, they are one of our proudly Canadian dishes, one of our delicacies. I'm holding up right here a family-sized bag of Lay's ketchup chips, and you can see right here in the corner, made in Canada, fabriqué au Canada. So you can tell that they are Canadian. So the thing about ketchup chips, I've mentioned this a couple of times on the show so far. Ketchup chips were something that I used to love when I was way younger, that nowadays I'm kind of a little bit more mixed on. They're good. They're like a good snacking food, but I just find them a little bit too sweet. But do they make for a good pork chop crusting? That's what we're here to find out. Let's go ahead. Let's bring our top-down camera back into view. Sorry, I was really parched. So yeah, these bad boys, they're still very hot. We gotta leave them to rest for maybe just a little bit longer. I'm trying to think how we want to cut these things. I have a couple of nice serrated knives that we can use to cut these bad boys up once they've cooled down just a little bit. I'm thinking that maybe what we'll want to do is, it'd be good if we had a cutting board, actually. Now that I think about it, I didn't even think about that in advance, but it would be good if we just straight up had a cutting board that we could cut these bad boys on. You know what? BRB, I'm gonna get a cutting board. Ooh, look at it. Look at it. It's a cutting board. Woo, woo, woo. And we're ready to put our various pork chops on said cutting board. And so I am just going to very quickly put them one by one there. Still very hot, but it's okay. For these things, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna move our chips around. I'm gonna put them, I'll just put these chips in the trolley, and I'll put our cooling rack and baking tray on the little platform over here. Number one, number two, and there we go. Okay. And this is, we have quite the feast in front of us today. Okay. Let's see here. We're gonna go ahead. I think they've cooled down enough. We're gonna cut ourselves a piece of, we'll zoom in a little bit here, the all-dressed pork chop first, and then we're going to try it with a little bit of our mustard sauce that we made. Well, it's nicely cooked on the inside, thankfully. Gonna go ahead, we're gonna just cut our piece into two pieces, one that we'll just enjoy as is, and then one that we'll enjoy with a little bit of the mustard sauce. So we're going to go ahead and let's give our non-mustard piece a try. We'll bring in our zoomed in view of our face for this one. And here we go. You get a lot of chips on this one. Let me put in another piece. Okay. Okay. There we go. That right there is a good pork chop. Nice and juicy. I will say, I wonder if maybe it would have worked out a little bit better if I went with a slightly thinner pork chop, because I feel like then we would have had a better chip to meat ratio. But the chips themselves, what chips have crusted onto the pork chop that I just tasted, very solid. I feel like the unique taste of all dressed ruffles really come through, despite having been cooked for a little bit. Let's go ahead and let's put a little bit of mustard sauce on this bad boy. See how it comes out. All right, down the hatch. It's good. It's good, but I feel like the mustard sauce drowns out the chip flavor a little bit. Still tastes crusty, but the actual taste of the chip doesn't really come through as much. Maybe I'll try, with the other two chips, I'll try maybe a little bit less sauce. All right, let's get ourselves a piece of the ketchup chip one. Let's see here. Don't need to cut here. Crusting on this one is very impressive. All right. Let's see. We're going to go ahead. We're going to give this one a taste test without anything added onto it. This is a very, gotta say, the color of this one really came through. This is a red looking pork chop. Red, magenta looking, whatever you want to say. Oop, a little bit of chip matter fell off it. Interesting. The taste of the ketchup chips is definitely not as strong as it was for the all-dressed pork chop. The all-dressed pork chop, you could still distinctly taste the all-dressed ruffles on this one. This one, the ketchup chips don't really come through as much. Let me try. I'm curious to see how it tastes with the mustard sauce. I mean, actually, a little bit of behind-the-scenes spoilers. The reason why I decided to go with mustard sauce in the first place is because I thought it would be fun to have ketchup chip crusted pork chops and then have a bit of mustard sauce on it because, you know, ketchup and mustard. Will this improve it? Yeah, it doesn't really enhance the ketchup-y flavor of it all that much, but it helps that the mustard sauce is very tasty. All right. We've tried our all dressed. We've tried our ketchup. There's only one thing left for us to try, and that is the kurkure masala munch. This is a big moment right here. This is a variety of Canadian chip that I think is a real hidden gem in the Canadian chip scene. I think that it's incredibly underrated. Not enough people are talking about it, and I'm really interested to see if it has resulted in a truly fantastic tasting pork chop. All right. There's a little corner. And I'll go with this piece. And you know what? Let me get a little bit more. Some of the chip matter fell off of it. Let me just spread a little bit more on top like that. There we go. All right. Bottoms up. Okay, it's interesting. Interesting. So here's the thing. The taste and the heat of the masala munch 100% comes through on this one. Unlike the ketchup chip crusted pork chop where you couldn't really taste the ketchup chip, you can 100% taste the masala munch on this one. The problem is the specific type of chip matter, because masala munch, it's for those who haven't seen, where is it? Here we go. The kurkure masala munch, it's kind of like a hot Cheeto. It's that kind of a chip as opposed to a Lay's or a Ruffle. And as a result, it coated the chip in such a way that it didn't result in a very good crunch. And so that's the thing, is you have the Ruffles, the all-dressed Ruffles pork chop, which both tastes like all-dressed Ruffles and has the crunch of an all-dressed Ruffle. And then you have the ketchup-flavored pork chop, which has the crunch of a ketchup-flavored chip, but not the taste. And then you have the kurkure masala munch, which has the taste of the kurkure masala munch pork chop, but not the crunch, because I guess grinding up a kurkure masala munch bayonet and crusting it with a pork chop doesn't really result in the kind of consistency that you desire. I don't really know why, but I guess we kind of, I think this is a very educational experience. I originally got this recipe that I made today from Renee Paquette's cookbook, and she specifically said you're going to want to use all dressed chips, and she mentioned in the opening of the recipe, you know, we, of course, Canadians are also proudly known for ketchup chips, but she didn't use ketchup chips in the recipe. Now I understand why. It's because she probably tried a bunch of different chip varieties, and she discovered that all dressed Ruffles are really the best kind of chip to go with for this particular kind of recipe, because it's the one chip that's going to retain its texture and flavor after you bake it with a pork chop. One last thing, we're just going to test this out with a little bit of mustard sauce, just because I'm curious to see what happens when we do that. If it ever so slightly changes the flavor for the better or not. Bottoms up. I like that. I like that. Again, it still doesn't remedy the fact that it just doesn't have the crunch that I'm looking for here. Overall, if I had to rank these bad boys, I mean, I think that the all dressed Ruffles crusted pork chop is definitely in the first place. I think second place is the masala munch, and then I think dead last in third place is the Lay's ketchup chip crusted pork chop. And with that, we have arrived at the end of tonight's stream. Normally, in the past, the way that we close these things out would be by rating someone, but there's actually been something wonky going on. I, for whatever reason, have not been able to raid other people on Twitch, despite going through the whole process of doing so. I'm trying to figure it out on the back end. So for now, we're just going to close out tonight's stream by ending things as you end things, by just pressing the stop stream and stop recording button. Thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight. The next episode, which will air on Wednesday, August 7th, will be the season finale of Kozibear's Cooking Season 5. Expect some cool and unexpected things on that stream. I don't want to give everything away right now, other than to say that you definitely are not going to want to miss it. And thank you to Samson, by the way. I appreciate it very much. Take care, guys. Have a good night. Stay safe, stay healthy, or stay unhealthy and make some potato chip crusted pork chops for yourself.